name's Kenny McLachlan. I'm proud to have been asked by Paul to do this interview with him for his Stadium Portraits TV. So let's have a wee look at it. It's my football fix for today. As you can see, I've got my club colours on, hoping for a game today, but I think it'll fall of the weather. So this is my football fix for today. So, Mr. Town, good morning. Yeah, good morning. So we've known each other for around 6 years now. We've become quite good friends in that time. So tell us a wee bit about how we got connected and how we became friends.
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, Kenny. It's quite unique where this has all come together. And the first time that I had contact with Dunfermline Athletic was through actually an Midlothian fan who commissioned me to do a painting for one of his staff who was retiring. And this guy was, his name escapes me because it's about probably 5 or 6 years ago now. And this guy worked at a building company in Dunfermline, and obviously a Pars fan. And he, for his retirement present, he commissioned me to do a painting. I think it was the did Pars play Anderlecht in a European game? Yeah. So it was a night scene of that, and I was given a bit of free license for this painting to basically paint East End Park and an imaginary fixture. So we got the kits right, we looked at photographs, etc. So that's what started the ball rolling with Dunfermline. And then through social media, the picture was out there a little bit more through Facebook streams, Twitter, and a guy called Kenny Mitchell, who you know well. We both know Kenny well now, and he commissioned me to do a few pieces for himself, which he donated to the club. And then we decided we were going to do prints, and we raised a lot of money for the Pars Disabled Trust, or whatever organisation that was at the time. And they were raising money to put a lift in the main stand. So we did raise about £2,000 or £3,000 through print sales and auctioning off the originals. But I think one of the originals is still in the stand in Eastern Park. I'm not sure what's been done with that. But that was 4 years ago. Well, it'll be 5 years ago this year. I think it was about November time. It was an home fixture versus Rafe. Yeah. And I remember getting out of the car, and obviously me and you had had these discussions on social media previously to meeting up. And I remember getting out of the car and just being a little bit overwhelmed, to be honest with you. It's not the sort of thing I've been used to getting, going to a stadium and doing an exhibition or a presentation at that time, obviously. And people were coming up to me in the street saying, "Hi, Paul," and it's just basically just an amazing feeling to be not sort of being getting recognised at that time, but it was overwhelming. And then I think you came up and you introduced yourself, and you give me a nice little gold badge and a scarf from the Heritage, and I've still got that the badge on a jacket. I think I had it on in the presentation. I had the badge on my jacket and the scarf, which I'll treasure forever. But that was basically the first time we met, and then the day seemed to go on and on. I remember the night previously we stayed in Edinburgh, and I'd met a client who had done some work for at Midlothian. And we were just discussing a deal, and we ended up slightly worse for wear in one of the salubrious cocktail lounges of Edinburgh. And I turned up to Eastern Park the next day to do this presentation, and I must admit I wasn't well. But
you got a big green round the gills, I remember.
Yeah. But what a great day! I mean, obviously, me and you met up after, and we went to Jason's bar, all part 2, what it was then, I think, and we extended the drinking time, and then we ended up in a curry house in Dunfermline. So it was a full day, and basically that's how we first met, Kenny, and we had a discussion about football and its past, and I think both our sort of collective interest in the game and the things we're interested in seemed to sort of come head on, and we chewed the fat, and you give me some historical facts on things, and so I was really sort of taken by your wholesome knowledge of football, and it just seemed to click.
Yeah, we do align quite well. Yeah, with different talents, but mine's more of ideas kind of guy, where yours is a kind of physical talent that we all marvel at.
Well, the thing is, Kenny, being an artist, that's sometimes how it works. You know, people get you enter conversations with people, and you get little insights into their past, and you think maybe that sort of feeling could go into a portrait, or you know, you're trying to draw. When I do commissions, I try to draw things out of my clients from their past, their experiences watching football, whether it's through, you know, they're watching football with the father like I do. I've just sent a message to a girl in Edinburgh this morning who was actually missing watching football, you know, and I think it's turning more into an emotional time for watching sport. You know, all we've got to do is watch it on TV, and it's not the same.
Not at all. It's we all will miss it incredibly. I just find myself kind of at a loss on a Saturday, you know. When you can watch your team on the television, yeah, it's great. It gives you a bit of football fix. But the older I get, the more I realise that going to a football match on a Saturday with your friends and your mates, having a few beers, the whole experience. It's not just about the football. It's more the day out and the social interaction with your friends, which is just as important as the football. You know,
I think in many respects, it's that. I think it's more important, the social aspect of football, because I mean, me and you know that more than anyone. You follow Dunfermline, I follow Bradford, and the times of success are probably quite minimal. So your interaction with your pals, going on away trips like you do every other week on the bus, which hopefully I'd love to come and watch an away game with Dunfermline. Maybe I'll pick the one I come to, because obviously I'd like to see it at a stadium where like Dundee or somewhere like that, where the stand may be pulled down in the future. So somewhere like that. But I think it is more important that takes precedence over what actually happens on the pitch.
Yeah, well, I can assure you would be more than welcome on our bus, but it's a day out with the Trailblazers from Kincardine is it's an experience in itself.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'll let you discover it at your peril, shall we say. Right, okay then, so let's move on a wee bit then. So let's focus on your art a wee bit. I know it's been an absolute passion since you were a young lad. And so tell us a wee bit about where it started, and why football stadium in particular.
I'll take you back to the beginning. I mean, I've always been surrounded by art or artistic people. First of all, my mum Maggie, she always had an artistic talent, hence why she worked for British Telecom, drawing all the plans for underground cables, and then she moved on to working for the police force and the scenes of crime. So I'm, watching my mum as a child, always dabbling with pens, and then in the 6-week holidays, having, because we had no childminders, I ever went to work with my mum and sat in a room, and she used to give me pieces of scrap paper to doodle on. So I'd look out of the window, look at different pieces of architecture in Bradford, and just basically get used to drawing lines, and even more importantly, it's not just about lines with artwork, it's about perspective and drawing your eye into a certain part of the picture. And then my grandma, my mum's mum, Alma, she was an artist in her own right. She used to do a lot of oil paintings, and they were scattered all over the house in a district called Wibsey in Bradford. So I used to spend a lot of time there looking at these colourful paintings. So I think it's just something that's within. It's not something that, like an hobby I took up. I'd always done pencil drawings, and then I think that my father's side, I'm talking a little bit about my mum here, but on my father's side, it was always football. And I think that, the passion, what my father had, and the stories that he used to tell me about Bradford City, or even the Bradford Park Avenue Club, the ex-Football League Club, and such a fantastic football stadium that was. On the 6-week holidays in 1980, before the stadium got pulled down, obviously Park Avenue had gone out of existence in the early 70s, and the ground still stayed, I would say, alive. No, it wasn't alive, it was semi-alive, but it was still a visual thing that you could visit. And on that summer's day when I walked into that football stadium, my whole life sort of changed because of the colours. I'd never seen a football ground with colours of red and green together, and when you actually saw it in full Technicolor, it had an effect on you. And I can only understand that, you know, all the old Park Avenue fans that were so distraught about their football club going out of the Football League, and not having the chance to visit this stadium again and watch their team must have had quite a profound effect on them. And being a Bradford City fan, the only thing I had, well, a few years before that, I think I started going in like 78 to the odd game, and you know, Bradford City's ground was a little bit like I don't know, it was like the Porter brother almost of the two, and it was more of an industrial stadium. It had an industrial backdrop with the old mills and chimneys that you could see from the main stand, which me and my dad used to sit in every week. It had a fantastic topography, the stadium, because it was built into a hillside. But out the two, the impact at Bradford Park Avenue definitely shaped my interest in football, and furthermore sketching the old stands, and that progressed on to reading Simon Inglis's book, The Football Grounds of England and Wales, and getting a real flavour for the old grounds. And what I tend to do is I'm quite a people's person in terms of, I wouldn't say day-to-day relationships, but thinking about how people react, thinking about how people feel when they enter these football stadiums. And I think that's what I try and encapsulate, the mood of the old stadiums and the feelings of people today, where they can look back and think, you know, there's an old guy with a flat cap on, or there's a young boy with a woolly hat on and a scarf, and that's the feeling I'm trying to portray, is getting that flavour back into the portraits where people have the memories, and that's basically all it is. You know, there's no rocket science behind artwork to me. I'm just trying to recreate memories, Kenny.
Yeah, when I look at your painting, there's two kind of aspects to your painting. And from my viewpoint, there's two aspects to your paintings. It's always the people or the scene that you're painting, and the people and the fans in it. And that's a life kind of thing, you know, and a live thing. And then the second thing is the stadium, the lines in the stadium, and the stands, and the architecture there. And I think, I don't know, I mean, I know your passion for Archibald Leach, you've actually, you know, you've kind of rubbed that off on me, and I kind of look at that as well now. And, it's kind of comes in two parts, you know, it's a living kind of fans and the players on the pitch, or whatever scene you're painting. And then the secondary thing, or, you know, I think maybe more for you, the primary thing is the architecture. So, you know, it's great how you make them both come together.
And in a lot of respects, I'm probably similar to Archie, because I've worked in construction all my life, up until just before Christmas last year. And, you know, obviously I've had spells out where I've been full-time as an artist, one of them which was 4 years, which I needed that time out of construction to develop the business, develop my own ideas. But revisiting Archie, I mean, you know, the guy, if you look at his stadiums, it had a reflection of the industrial UK, whether it was Glasgow, Birmingham, London. You know, it was commissioned by a whole host of football clubs up and down the UK to produce football stadiums, design them. The stadiums could have been there for 20, 30 years until Archie got involved, and he remodelled them. And, you know, all the stadiums had a certain flavour, but we've touched on before when we did an interview a few months ago with Rob Casey, and, you know, you look at Archie's work, and it all, I wouldn't say it all moulds into one, but so differently, the architecture behind Villa Park. I mean, obviously, anyone that looks at that football stand, at the old football stand at Trinity Road, Villa Park, and at Fulham, you know, you notice certain themes running through it, but they've all got their own individuality. And I think, to a degree, I do like each of my paintings to have a certain degree of individuality. Although to many people they may look the same, but I think what I'm trying to do is just look a little bit deeper into the painting and have a look at the architecture, and have a look at how these football grounds are constructed, and basically they were constructed to maximise capacities, just the same as they are today.
Yeah. So you spoke a wee bit earlier on about Bradford City and going to the Valley Parade ground. I know that you were involved in you were there that day at the Bradford Fire, which was horrendous. So, and I know it's had a profound effect on you, your work, and your life. So, tell us a wee bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the disaster at Bradford has had a huge impact on my life, and looking back, the events of the whole day, it was just a normal day. I think we walked to the game because it was going to be such a big crowd. We won the 3rd Division Championship. We were getting presented with a trophy before the game. So I think me and my dad, if I can remember this rightly, we did walk to the game. And then what turned into celebration 43 minutes later turned into a living nightmare, and I think that where I struggle with we all know, I'm lucky, both myself and my dad, my father Barry, we both got out of the stadium safely, but it was the panic of the scenario of those 4 minutes. My dad had gone to the tea bar at the back, and I would have said for those few moments seemed like an hour where I'd lost him, and it wasn't. It was just a matter of a couple of minutes, and then you could see obviously the flames rising up. You're talking 70 yards away, and then rapidly coming along the stand, and I'm thinking I've not got long here to get out of this thing. So I was thinking about it the other day, and it's like I think the anxiety. That's where the anxiety is. There is a profound effect on what happened in the aftermath, but the anxiety is how the hell did we get out of that? And the whole thing is a bit of a blur, to be honest. The only thing I can remember is reaching the other side of the pitch, turning around, and the whole thing was literally ablaze. And I thought, wow, I've got out of that, I'm lucky. But in essence, the last thing I felt was my dad pushing me over the wall, and I'd lost him that day. I had no idea where he was. There was thousands of people on the pitch. And just standing there for probably what seemed like a whole, hours and hours. It probably wasn't. It was probably only about 20 minutes till we left the stadium. And it was a friend of my dad's, Terry Collins. He'd played football with me, and he'd seen me walking home, and he'd pick me up and give me a lift home. And I got back home, and my mum obviously had seen what had happened on TV. She was hysterical. And then I got to the house, and I just said, look, I know my dad's okay because I've seen him, but for my mum to grasp that information and process it, it's such a difficult sort of hour. And then I think the part that probably affected me as a young boy, I was 15, I call myself a young boy, I was growing up. And I think the process of it, trying to process what had happened at Bradford that day, or should I say Valley Parade, I think I was trying to work out in my own mind why it had happened. I was looking at the way the football stadium built. I'd thought deeper into the whole process probably than a lot of people would have done. So I was looking at the architectural standpoint of how the ground had been built. You don't build grounds like Valley Parade that you sort of like build into the landscape. It wasn't an architectural sort of relic. But I was obviously overthinking the whole situation, and then I was thinking about this last night. I used to get the bus to work, and then every morning I get the bus to work, you used to pass Valley Parade, and you can actually see into the stadium. So you're looking at this where the stand used to be, and the sort of the boldness behind what used to be there and then wasn't there. So you still try to process why this had happened and the after effects. So it wasn't until probably, I'd say 10 years ago, till I really started taking another interest in art and sketching football stadiums to start off with, and then it moved on to paint. I think it was probably then that I realised that I was in a little bit of trouble mentally, because I've been trying to process information for over 2 decades, and it's probably, I'd probably wrapped it up and put it in a little box somewhere, not try to think about it too much. But I think through the paintings, a lot of the emotions started coming out, and then obviously being asked to paint Bradford City again, and I think, I don't know, I think I probably hit a little bit of a wall, and the anxiety I don't think has ever left me from that day, to be honest, Kenny.
I don't think it can. You can't imagine what it'd be like just to do something normal as going to a football match with your dad or your friends, and watched a documentary recently about the Ibrox disaster, which was
it's the same thing, yeah.
1970. So it's going to a football match with your dad or your friends and not coming home. It must be. Every one of us can feel that. Feel what it would be like. That could be me.
Well, I think that's the
just ordinary people doing something ordinary.
That's the flip side of the coin to the whole thing. I see myself and my father Barry. We were fortunate to get out of this thing, and albeit it was very close. You're probably talking another 20 seconds, and we could have been in real serious trouble. But then you start thinking about the people that have been, really badly affected by it. And I think because I am a deep thinker and I do care about people, you always carry that baggage around with you. If you were there that day, and I don't care who you are, if you saw what went on that day, whether you was in another part of the stadium or whether you was in the stand and you'd escaped the fire, you must carry some mental scars, because it's only natural to overthink things when you've seen something like that. Hence, like with Hillsborough, I can't watch Hillsborough because it just brings the memories back. If I ever see pictures of it or clips on TV, I turn it off or I turn the page. I just can't look at it, and it's, everyone says it's become an overstated term that you should never go to a football match and not come home. But for me, it digs a little bit deeper than that, and I probably have overthought it. But in essence, what do you do when it's happened? It's happened, and I think you've got to find these mechanisms of dealing with it, and maybe the artwork, it has given me another perspective in life where I could move on from it. Yeah.
I think it's sometimes it's almost a release for you, because I know that a lot of the time you'll incorporate the 56 into your paintings, and so it's almost like it's bleeding yourself of that, of that emotion, if you like, and putting it into your work. I don't put 56 into my paintings to please myself. I put 56 into the paintings as a permanent reminder of the 56. It's nothing to do with me. It was something I thought about. It's because I can do that and keep their memory flowing forever. These paintings are on people's walls, and I don't tell them that there's 56 in the painting because of the people at Bradford. They probably don't even know until they've got the painting, or they've realised, or they've picked up on something on social media where it's been mentioned. It's just something I think. It's not that it's right to do it. It's right for me to do it, and I just think it's a lasting memory of the people that are suffering, and I think still suffering today. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll move on a wee bit from that, because it's I'm sure we could talk all day about that, but it's obviously painful and it's still there for you. So let's move on a wee bit, and we'll do something a wee bit more light-hearted then. So like me, you come from a building background as a builder. I was a roofer, a slater, if you like, in a younger life, and I just wondered, what it must be like being out, especially now when I look outside and it's icy and snowy, and I wonder how you've made the transition from being outside freezing cold all weather to coming in, sitting in your nice warm studio with a paintbrush in your hand and a nice warm brew in the other. How does that feel, and how do you transition into that then?
Well, I can tell you at the moment, Kenny, it feels absolutely fantastic, because I look out of the window and I see the sleet coming down like that, and it's like, wow, yeah, but in a lot of respects, I actually feel lucky that I can make that choice. I've been flitting back into construction and then coming out of it. But I think the last experience I had, I've worked in construction since I was 15 years old. I was probably mixing mortar for my grandfather on a Saturday morning, probably from 12-year-old, when he used to come and build things on my parents' house back in the day. So I've been involved or been surrounded by sand and cement most of my life. So when I started painting, the thing took off quite quickly, and I found myself in a bit of a scenario where, what do I do here? Do I take time out to paint, or do I carry on with building work? And it was one summer probably. I think it was not long after Bradford. I'd obviously started painting probably about 12 years ago, but it was when it started to really kick in where it felt like it could be a full-time career. It was not long after Bradford played Chelsea at Stamford Bridge when it really started to kick in. And I took a 4-year out from construction, and the diary was just getting busier and busier and busier. And then obviously the weather starts turning and you think, I won't mind laying a few bricks or whatever, but I'm 52 years old now in August this year, and the body starts to work a bit more. And I think now was the time to I could feel a lot of pressure building up around about November time, which isn't nice when you've got anxiety issues and you start getting all these pressures, and people sort of knocking on the door saying, can you do this, can you do that? And I just took a real swift decision to say, right, enough's enough. I need to concentrate on the art business. And we've had the busiest January ever in terms of print sales and commissions collectively. So this month's been really busy. And I'm not saying every month's going to be like that, but I think it's somewhere you've got to make it like that. It's your full-time occupation. And yeah, there's days like yesterday where I didn't paint. I did other things to help promote the business, like this channel we're doing now, and other things that I needed to. Obviously, the flip side of the business is organising print sales. We've got a couple of projects ongoing at the moment which need organising. So collectively, there's all these things. It's not just me sat at an easel painting 6-7 days a week. There's a lot more behind the business, and without chatting about myself too much, there's also my wife Lindsay, who puts hours and hours away from her job, a day job working for NHS. On a night she can be sat within the line, and I'll be watching TV, and Lindsay's sat there ordering 7-8 prints and jigsaws. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. I do love what I do, but then again, it's like any job. You've got the pressures, and you get time pressures. People that are wanting paintings, like I'm doing one at the moment for a Bradford Bulls painting, and that came in last Sunday, but it's got a time restraint on it because the guy's birthday is at the beginning of February. So it's you get little curveballs thrown in between projects. So you've got to stay strict. I have a whiteboard in my studio where I have things written down. Not only the commissions I've got to do, but I'll also look at forecasting what I'd like to do in the future, so it keeps it fresh. And obviously the things that you guys put my way, which is much appreciated, and that keeps things fresh as well, because I think we're bouncing ideas off each other all the time in terms of the football histories, and obviously we're really looking forward to doing some things for the national team at Scotland as well. So and it's strange how Scotland's kicked off, because my relationship with you and with other people at other football clubs, and now we're going to be doing work with Rafe Rovers, 2 European projects. So it's really bizarre how it's really, really kicked off in colossal terms to me. And it's not, like looking at England, we just get print sales, but there's not been relationships built as such with the English teams as what there has in Scotland. And if you can put your finger on the button and you can answer that question why, I don't think anyone would be able to come to it other than that Scotland fans are really passionate about the football teams. And when I come up north and I come to Scotland, we can't wait to come back up, because it's like stepping back in time for us. I think it's got a little bit too commercial down here, in terms of the Premier League especially. So coming to Scotland and watching footballs and actually standing on terraces again is it's a delightful experience.
Yeah, standing the terraces, I think some of the lower league grounds still have terraces, and it does take you back when you go to some of these, and you can't beat standing the terrace with your mates and swapping ends at half time and things like that. Sadly, it's it's disappearing here as well. As time moves on and grounds get upgraded. So I think that's quite sad.
Just because these grounds are upgraded, Kenny, for me, I thought about this at length. Because grounds are upgraded and they're taking terracing away, that, to me, it doesn't necessarily mean it's safer.
No, well, no. I suppose, again, looking at your background, it's probably easier to get out there a standing stadium than it is to get out a seat stadium.
Exactly. The answers are there, staring us in the face. Hillsborough happened because the terracing was caged in either side. The people couldn't release each side. There was a tunnel at the back, and the people came through the tunnel at the back, and there was entered in a cage, basically, where people couldn't get out. that is why Hillsborough happened. It was nothing to do with it being terracing.
Yeah.
If it had been a section of seating which was caged in, the same scenario would have happened.
Yeah.
It's about how the disasters happen because people were fenced in, rightly or wrongly, whichever way you'd look at that. For me, it's wrong. If we'd have had fences at Bradford in front of that stand, there'd have been thousands lost their lives that day. So, it's a fate scenario. But for me, terraces, I think personally should be brought back.
Yeah, I think we'll get there eventually, but it's certainly with the financial constraints in Scotland just now, there isn't any money here. And the TV money isn't here. It seems to be the Premiership in England just they seem to be able to draw money from nowhere. There's millions going. There just isn't any money here. It's
like when you messaged me the other night. Pars were playing Green up Morton. Was it Monday night?
It was a Friday night.
Was it Friday night? Wow, that's gone quick. But you look. We both sat there. I watched the first half, but the game was that bad. I'm starting to watch the stadium more than the match. I'm looking at the old stand at Capillo, and the old terracing behind the goal, which has still got the wooden bench seating.
Yeah.
It's got timber seating on top of blockwork, which has been there since I can remember football cards of Green up Morton players when they were in the first division, the old, which is now the Premiership, and those seats were there then. So you're looking at a stadium that's not really moved with the times because they've not had the money to do so. But I still get an enjoyment out of looking at a stand where, the Green up Morton stand, it's got like the wall at the front and the seating's above it. So it's probably got not a bad view in a lot of respects.
It's not the most comfortable stand to sit in. I can tell you a funny story about that seating behind the goal. So it was shut off. Looking at some of your work again, I'm always fascinated when we watch your work on Facebook and it kind of evolves, and the different stadia that you've painted over the years. It's great to watch the piece coming alive, especially when you start painting the crowd, and you kind of imagine yourself as being there. There's been a huge amount of different stadia that you've painted, large, small. I know it's not your favourite thing, but you paint some of the modern day stadia as well. I think a lady who I was on a training course once with, I showed her a bit of your work, and she commissioned you to paint Goodison Park, which was great. But I knew it. But you do it, as a work. But I know the modern stadium is not really in your heart. It's the old-fashioned stadium. But tell us a wee bit about the kind of range of stadia that you painted, and what's important for you when you're doing these.
Well, just touching on that commission that you sent down from the lady, the Everton commission. I was delighted to do that because it was different. It was from the outside of the stadium looking in, and I wouldn't put Goodison Park down as a modern stadium. I'd always put it down as, obviously it's a stadium that was designed by Archie, albeit it's got a new stand on one side, but the rest of the stadium, the three sides, are literally untouched. So that for me is still an old stadium, a classic stadium. And the commission was wonderful, and we went on to sell quite a lot of prints. We sold one the other day of that image. So it's still, it still has that passion for people when they look at the painting, that they can see, they can connect with it. All paintings are different, Kenny. It's not, every time I get a commission, it's a different piece of work, so it has a different feeling. I always think about the people that I'm painting the commissions for. But there's a huge variety of skill and work that goes into each one. And I think we spoke previously. I think one of the questions you were about to ask is that probably the most testing portrait I've had to do, and it. I can think back. I think they're all testing in a way because they've all got their own individuality. You might be thinking about the skies, the floodlights. Getting the floodlights right is a major passion of mine, because if you get the floodlights wrong, people will pick up on it and say they weren't like that, or they were a bit taller or smaller. So that's one level of concentration you've got to draw into almost to perfection. But I would say that one of the most testing portraits I've had to do, in terms of not having anything visual to work from, is when we did the Hampden trilogy, which you came on board with, and you came and did a lovely speech at Hampden at the exhibition. And the first part, the whole series of the Hampden trilogy kicked off by just doing a painting of Capkin Park. It was just a one-off piece, and people saw that, and then a guy from Queen's Park, Gary Templeman, is a director at Queen's Park, he got in touch and said, I'd like to buy that portrait, Paul, but then can you move on and do, because it was the second Hampden Park, I'd like you to paint the present Hampden Park from the 70s, but also when that's done, we'd like you to paint the first, but we're doing some research. So I started doing my own research. I'm thinking the first Hampden Park, I couldn't find any visuals whatsoever, apart from some old pen sketches that people had done. Well, I don't know who the artist was, but at the time in the 1800s, they'd done these little pen sketches, which were quite common in the day for putting in newspapers. So the Queen's Park they'd sort of employed free of charge the services of the historian Jed O'Brien, who you met at Hampden, lovely chap. And Jed put a lot of work in behind the scenes to provide me with maps of the old site, which is now the site of the Hampden Bowling Club. So I had various maps to work from. Jed had given me prompts on things that should be in the portrait, like the stand down the side was of a timber construction, and it maybe looked like this. We know what the pavilion looked like. You can tell from where on the maps of the old stadium where the pavilion was. There was the old church in the foreground, with the name escapes me. And then I had to look at Google Earth, obviously the railway line which now cuts across the site. Quite alarmingly, people think, oh, that must have been the terracing. Well, I think you went to Hampden Bowling Club, and I had this semi-disagreement with you, saying, no, it wasn't like that, because I'd actually studied the maps to do the portrait. So to get the feeling behind that I'd say it took about 4 months to get my head into gear with the whole landscape, and looking at Google Earth and swinging well, obviously I'd do it on my iPad, but take screenshots from various parts of Queen's Park and the landscape, even looking back the other way towards Hampden Terrace at the top. So you get a familiarisation with the whole landscape, even down to the street names. So that was the big tester. And then in terms of even the scene of the match, you're looking at the strips that the clubs wore in the day, and even the goal mouse and the goal setups. I mean, there were no nets in those days. There were just 2 timber posts and a rope going across the top, and like a double D goal area. So all these things that in my mind that I had to put into the portrait, and then the difficulty behind any piece of artwork for an artist is to sort of draw a line and say, right, that's done. Is a portrait ever finished? I'm not the one to say whether it is. It's that I finish it when I feel that the time's right. Say, right, I can't do enough on that. If I do any more, I think I'd ruin it. But I think that was the biggest test, and in terms of research, was the first Hampden, which moved on to the trilogy, which we presented last. Will be 2 years this coming Christmas, which was a fantastic day. We talked about it previously. We were walking around the fantastic museum at Hampden and looking at the old stuff.
You were like a kid in a sweet shop. I loved taking you around that, and I knew you would love it. I knew I'd been before a couple of times, so I knew, and I'd sent you some pictures of my journey around there previously. So I knew you would absolutely love it, and it was great. It was watching a kid in a sweet shop taking you around it.
It's somewhere where I'd love to go again and do it with more time, because obviously we had to do a presentation after, and I had all the what I'd call pre-match nerves, because I've got to get up and present this thing to a wider audience than the people who were just there in the museum. So the whole day, that was quite an emotional time for me, getting up and speaking in front of people and presenting your work. It's the most difficult thing in the world is talking about yourself. But I can talk all day about the work. I don't particularly like talking about myself as much, but talking about the work and my ideas behind it, I find quite relaxing. And I think it's part and parcel with with executing these portraits. It's a part and parcel thing that you should be allowed to talk about your work and the experiences that you've had in the past, which hopefully come out in these portraits.
Yeah, I think there's a huge scope for you. Really, when you're, I know this is a new idea, doing things for your Stadium Portraits TV. I think there's a huge opportunity for you to do a short piece like this, but perhaps the person who commissions you or the recipient of the painting to just do a short piece, just to say what the feeling is behind it, and what's included and what was important to the person. I think it's a great opportunity for you, and it brings the pieces to life for everybody else, not just you and the person that's bought it.
Yeah, well, that's one of the ideas behind Stadium Portraits TV, is that to get that angle on the people receiving the portraits. I mean, it's lovely to get messages. I mean, last week, just this last Monday, we posted the Brockville portrait up, the second Falkirk one we've done. And I know Falkirk's not a subject you like talking about, Kenny, but I think we're all, to a degree, I think we all enjoy the same thing, and it's the banter behind it, as long as it doesn't get too personal. But posting the portrait up to the lady in Falkirk on Monday, and then she received it Wednesday, and we get a lovely message, and we get a photograph of it on this lady's lounge wall, alongside other work that she'd bought. Jane, she seems a lovely woman, but I've not met the lady, so that part is a little bit strange. I did say to Lindsay the other night, I said, look, this Jane sent us this lovely picture of Brockville in her home, and she's got one of the World War I paintings that I've done on canvas, which is another side to the artwork, which I'm passionate about. But it sort of gives you a bit of I don't know, it knocks the wind out of me sometimes when I see things like that, and I do get quite choked up about it, because it's nice, people that have got my work in their homes, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, it's just a piece there, it's a small pencil sketch, but it's what it means, Kenny. And it's just a lovely thing for me personally. What a position to be in, I can go into my studio, produce a piece of artwork, and it draws people in. And I know it's not to everyone's taste, but I think in artwork, when I look at other people's artwork, I love landscapes and Northern England and chimneys and mills. I love all that type of thing. And on the odd occasion, I'll do one just for that on my own sort of. I call it sort of therapy, because I like painting old buildings. It's painting football stands and floodlights. Yeah, it's lovely, but to paint buildings as well is a real pleasure, and it's a test.
I had a kind of similar experience, I suppose, when Dunfermline were in trouble a few years ago, 7 years ago, when we first started doing a wee bit of fundraising for them. People started giving me things to auction to raise money for the club. We had to get money in there, or the club was going to die. So, there was some fantastic things just came, and they were in my possession for just a brief time before you passed them on, before you auctioned them on, and they went. But I've had some fabulous things, cup final shirts, and I think I sold half the cup final shirts from a game. I think at one time I had the clock that was given to the referee at Dunfermline's centenary match. Just some things that are just fabulous bits of history that I sold, and and now being a member of the Dunfermline Athletic Heritage Trust, you think, gee, I wish we could get these things back again. But at the time, the important thing was to get money into the club. It's still an important thing, but to have that history, and to have that bit of history in your hands, and I think you get the same thing with that. Somebody's viewpoint of the lady from Brockville. I know it wasn't the original idea you had, and you adapted it slightly for her. So it was her piece of history, and then to have that, and then to pass it on, to go into that lady's house and to be in her pride and joy forever. I suppose it's quite a special thing to you.
Well, it is, and I see. You probably might disagree to a certain extent, but I see Falkirk and Dunfermline as, I know they're in a league below, but they're probably parallel in terms of how the clubs are shaped, how your supporters and Falkirk supporters portray their own teams with passion, and it is special. It's a special thing to do. Obviously, I started that portrait with just a floodlit view of Brockville, and I was just going to paint it to put it out there, and then Jean she'd come on board and she said, look, I'd like to buy the original, and then we got discussing more and more into the things that made her tick and the match scene that made her tick, and that's the one we came up with, and it's it's a personal portrait now. It's not one that's just off the shelf. That's in essence, the view is out of my mind, but it's personal to Jean, and I hope it brings a lot of pleasure and comfort, because she asked me to put her father's name on the shirt at the end, which is not on the print. It's on Jean's original. So that's the bit behind it where it's the personalisation of the portraits that's a special thing.
Yeah, so I think just one final question then, Paul. So the current situation, the pandemic, affects everybody. It's affecting everybody in the world, and we spoke about it earlier on. I think it's people have lost their jobs, and it's affected so many people in different ways, and just as we were speaking earlier on about how it affects your social life, and having no football to go at the end of weeks and horrendous. But from your side, how's the COVID-19 pandemic? How's it affected your work? Has it had a positive effect, a negative effect? Tell us about it.
I think in view of the painting side of it, nothing's really changed, because my world is quite insular. I suppose that I am quite an introvert person, so it's being locked away in a studio for 8 hours a day it's not really had an impact on my mental well-being, and sadly for others it is, but because my job's in-house, it's in-house, it's in a studio, and it's, I lock myself away. I have to be locked away to work. So to that degree, COVID's not really affected me one bit. The way it has affected me is getting out on a weekend and watching football with my dad, or even seeing them as much. I mean, they literally live, 10 minutes walk, and it's, you've got to watch yourself out. If I go see my parents now, I stand on the drive and talk to them. My mum and dad are on the doorstep, so it has had an impact in that sense, and getting out and watching football and seeing your pals like you do. You see your pals, and I if this thing needs to end quite soon, because I could see it having a major impact on sport wholly, not just football. It'll be cricket, rugby, you name it, and even at a lower level, people will stop playing. So we're sitting on a time bomb to a degree, where we do need to see an end to it, and it's a personal thing, is having a jab in your arm, but I think the more that have it, the better we're going to be moving forward.
Yeah, well, I'm pleased to say I've had my work meant that I got early, but I think the real thing that I was trying to reach there about how it affected you, have you seen an increase in commissions? I think people are at home and they're looking for something to fill their time. They're looking for, they tend to reminisce more. I think if they're anything like me, you'll sit on a Saturday afternoon and you maybe have a chat with your missus or chat with your friends on Facebook or whatever, and you tend to reminisce. And I think it's that reminiscing that perhaps sparks people's thoughts of, I would like something, So has it had a positive effect on the amount of commissions you're getting, or what?
Well, yeah, it has had a positive impact, because I'm still painting. I'm busy. I've got commissions lined up to the end of February, but potentially other people asking for potential things doing down the line. In between that, I will paint clubs off my own back where we can sell prints and jigsaws. But yeah, last year, this COVID thing started in March in the UK to have any form of impact, and I didn't find that the work was slowing down. I had one chap from East Stirling that said I'd like an original painting, albeit I did work on him a little bit with the scene and stuff, that he said he'd saved a load of money up because he wasn't going to the pub, so now we could afford an original painting, which I had quite a few of those. People had banked a load of money, and I had a story of a friend of my father's who I went to present a portrait to before Christmas, and their son had saved, because he was used to going out to the pub and munching kebabs on a Saturday night. He was no longer doing this, and he'd saved £5,000. And it's just the stories that I don't think, that there are some scenarios within COVID where things have been positive. I don't think I'm sure what's going on there with the video, but something's talking to me. But anyway, I don't know what's going on. Is that you or me, Kenny?
not me. I can hear it in the background.
Yeah. We'll just crack on then.
So I'm just wondering if it's going to cut out. I know.
Yeah, we'll just have to apologise to the viewers anyway. But yeah, so I think it's had a positive impact on myself. Obviously, I'm mindful of others more than myself, as I always am. I always think about others before myself. But yeah, things are going really well, and I pray that it carries on because it's a job I love, and I hope that reflects in what I do and the way it comes across.
Well, Paul, we could talk all day, and we often do talk all day, whether it be on Facebook or Messenger or on the phone. And I've really enjoyed doing this. It's not often we actually talk face to face.
No.
It's great. It's great for two pals to come together and have a chat, and just hope it's of interest to other people. So we'll catch you again, mate. Take care, and help the family and my wee ma that I'm asking for her.
Yeah.
That stuck with her a wee bit, Maggie. She's my ma now, my wee English ma.
Yeah. Well, she's a great woman. And let's not forget, the parents' role in young people's lives. I mean, I'm not calling myself young anymore, but the role that my parents have had behind the scenes in supporting me through, telling me to follow my heart. It's what's in here that comes out in the portraits, and I've always been backed up through Lindsay, and I've always had the temptation to go back out and do building work, and I don't think that'll ever stop, but I've got to make it stop now. And I've got to follow this and see it through because, there's nothing more than pertinent at the time. Time is getting shorter, and I think now is the time to really press on now and get more portraits painted and create more memories and meet more lovely people like yourself.
I think you made a statement there which is probably sums you up, and it says to follow your art. Now, I don't know if it's your accent or what you were actually saying, but is it follow your art or follow your heart?
It's following what's in. For me, it's both. I mean, it's I talk with a broad Yorkshire accent, so words can get misinterpreted. But that'd be my advice to anyone: is if you've got a dream, this thing that's around at the moment isn't. It doesn't. It picks on anyone. It's a little bit. It's like a terminal disease to a degree, and if you've got something that you are passionate about and you want to do in life, I would say just give it a go and do it, because what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work. But even if it doesn't work, I was faced with huge scenarios when I first started painting, which had an impact on me mentally because they weren't working. It's like any job, but if you don't put the hours and the time in, how the hell are you supposed to improve? You've got to spend time perfecting your craft, and that's pretty much what I've done. And I'll be honest, I'm not 50% of the way I want to be yet as an artist. I'm still looking at ways to improve my craft. So it's just down to hard work, Kenny, and that's the way I was brought up. But that's when I reflect on my parents and the backing that they've given me, and just stick with it. Whatever you're doing in life, stick with it and go for it.
Okay, mate. We'll call it a day at that.
Okay Kenny. Nice to speak to you.